Pay attention to this little boy. Grandma just painted the altar. He kicked it to break, and then he carries his grandmother's. The rubber shoes she had sewn numerous times, casually threw into the toilet. This led to the elderly grandmother had to go barefoot on the mountain roads in the rough areas. She would be cut by sharp stones if she was not careful. And the reason why the boy did this, just for the sake of the game console. 2 small batteries. The boy used to live in the city, but his mother was unemployed. She had no time to take care of him, so she sent him to the countryside to live with his grandmother for a while. The first time they met, the boy disliked his old grandmother very much. After his mother left in the car, grandmother went to hold his hand, but the boy raised his hand to hit her, and called her dumb and stupid. Grandmother had to go ahead of her. The boy was following far behind. She looked back from time to time to make sure he was not following her. In the evening, she used her hands to carry the boy's food. The boy was disgusted with the rice and vegetables, and put it in his grandmother's bowl. Then she picked up the canned meat from the city. She ate it with great relish. Grandmother took out the candy she had treasured for years, and handed it to the boy. The boy took a bite of the chocolate, then he turned around and ran away. At first, the boy's life in the countryside was quite comfortable. Every day he played the little fighter game, and a sip of 82-year-old happy water, playing on his back, lying down, playing in circles. Grandma would sometimes ask him to help with the threading. The boy will be a look of displeasure. After a day play night play every day, Dick's battery was finally sacrificed, so he asked his grandmother for money to buy batteries, but the grandmother took out her pockets are cleaner than her face. But the boy did not believe it at all. When grandma was washing clothes, came to ask her for money again. See, grandmother cannot get money, directly pushed her down, ran back to rummage through the cupboard, but nothing was found. Then he set his eyes on grandma's silver baron, while grandmother was napping, pulled off the baron and ran away, all the way to the village kiosk. But this kind of button battery, remote stores do not have. Then he was going to change snacks, but the boss recognized the meal. He hit him hard on the head. The boy could only cover his head and run out, and grandmother also found the son missing, can only silently tidy up the head of white hair. Finally the boy had no choice but to go back, but unfortunately, the canned meat was also finished. Faced with his grandmother's bland food, he had no appetite at all. Finally he couldn't take it anymore. He took out the picture and told his grandmother he wanted to eat fried chicken, so grandma brought the herbs she had worked so hard for, in exchange for an old hen. For the sake of the grandson's desire to eat chicken, he braved the heavy rain, walking through the mountainous area, and when it was ready, the boy's attitude changed again. The old man took off a whole chicken leg to his grandson, who had just woken up, but the grandson cried and fussed. He wanted to eat fried chicken, but grandma made boiled chicken. But how does the old grandmother know? She kept on gesturing, pushed the chicken in front of the boy. Finally the boy knocked the bowl over. He fell under the blanket and continued to cry. Grandmother picked up the rice that was spilled. Then she took the remaining rice on the floor, pinched up and ate it herself. Perhaps only the older generation understands the truth that every grain is hard work. At night, the boy woke up from hunger. He looked at the cooked chicken. He couldn't help but hold the chicken leg and gnaw on it. The next day grandma got cold from the rain. She lay in bed all the time. He couldn't wake her up. The boy kindly found a blanket, covered grandma with a blanket, and put a towel on her forehead. At that moment, he overheard grandmother's hair. There was a broken spoon. The boy was a little ashamed, and quietly returned the silver pin to the grandmother. Then he clumsily, with yesterday's leftover chicken, he made a lunch for his grandmother with love. So the boy seemed to be not so naive, but then his childishness returned. After his grandmother got well, she took him to the market. She was going to exchange the produce for some change. First, she bought the boy a new pair of shoes. Then she took him to eat fried noodles. Grandma only drank water on the side to fill up her muscles. Looking at his grandmother's face when she was paying, the boy was a little upset, and while waiting for the bus to leave, he saw others eating brownies. He also clamored to eat. Grandmother turned around and picked up the bag on the ground, ran to the kiosk to buy 2 packs. But on the way back, the boy disliked them. I sat with Xiao Mei. You can go by yourself. So he wanted to show off in front of the girl he likes to show in front of. He was worried that the dirty grandmother would make him lose face. The grandmother wanted the boy to help her with her luggage, but the boy pushed him away. The crutches fell to the ground. The grandmother was left standing alone in the same place, and the boy waited at the bus stop. He waited for one bus after another, but there was no sign of his grandmother until late in the evening. Grandma took her walking stick, appeared in the dust raised by the car. It turned out that she couldn't afford to spend money, so she walked all the way back from the town. The boy rushed over to her, complained to his grandmother. Why did she come back only now? And the grandmother drew a circle on her chest to apologize. On the way back, the boy finally realized his mistake. Because of a thought he had caused his grandmother to walk all the way back, so he put the rest of the packet of cookies into his grandmother's package. As a kind of compensation, the relationship between grandma and grandson was finally eased. But at that moment, my mother wrote to me. This little boy is lying on the bed, with a face like an nymphomaniac, because just now the girl he loves invited him to play on his birthday. The boy was whistling happily, gathering the gifts he wanted to give her, but then he looked in the mirror and saw, oh my god, This haircut is too ugly. I fiddled with it from side to side but was not satisfied. I put some water in it again. I wanted to fix my hair. Finally I had to ask my grandmother to help me cut off a little bit for myself. Grandma received it. Just a little bit. The boy was excited about his handsome hair. As the grandmother's scissors fell slowly, the boy also fell asleep. When he woke up, but directly into a pothead, Granny thought it was just a little bit. Now the boy was even more ashamed of himself. He cried and ran to the side. He found a black cloth and wrapped it around his head. This was the only way. He could only go out for his appointment. Grandma brought him new shoes to put on, but the boy kicked them aside. He went happily in his old shoes, but he overlooked at his grandmother. He put the game console inside too, because the power was out. He couldn't turn it on. The boy just put it in his pants pocket, so a carload of toys, only a rag doll in return. The boy also looked happy, as if he had just returned from his mother-in-law's house on the Mid-Autumn Festival. But as he walked, the boy's feet were worn red. He looked at the downhill road in front of him. At once he had an idea. Get on the trolley, ready to play slide. I did not expect. Now not only the car broke down, and people also fell. Both knees were bleeding profusely. The boy walked home with a tumor. At this time he remembered his little king. After opening it, he found there were 2 banknotes inside. This is his grandmother left him to buy batteries. The boy could no longer control his tears. At that moment, his grandmother came to him. He rushed up to him. He cried out in anguish. After checking the wound on his knee, she dried his tears for him. Then she handed him a letter. His mother had sent it from the city. This means that in a few days the boy, he would be going back to the city. When he leaves, Grandma was alone again. Before he left he started teaching Grandma to write, so that if she was sick, she must write to tell herself. But she couldn't write properly. Both the boy and the grandmother cried before they left. The boy did not sleep that night. Instead, he put on all the stitches, so that even after he left, grandmother also do not have to struggle to thread. This night the boy really grew up. When he left, he didn't say anything. Grandma kept banging on the car window. She couldn't say a word to take care of herself, but the love overflowed out of the screen. Some love is silent, and the boy tried not to look at her. He didn't want his grandmother to see him in tears, but after the car drove away, the boy finally couldn't help himself. He ran to the back of the car. He put his hand on his chest and drew a circle. He said he was sorry for all the nonsense he had done all these days, and his grandmother's selfless tolerance these days became the boy's most precious memories. The most precious memories. The love of elders is always silent, like the gentle rain in March, like a gentle breeze on a hot day. It is the concern in the cold autumn, a warm ray of sunshine in the cold winter months.